Mary Carmen Zakrajsek. I call her the fireball. She is, I'm telling you, just a hard-charging girl. I showed up at the State House on the Thursday after the pro-life rally, and there, I'll just say it was demonic. There were chants going on, and they were incredibly loud, echoing throughout the chamber in the State House. But there was Mary Carmen with her merry band of Student for Life pro-lifers, and she began to sing the most beautiful songs, and she circled every level of the State House, drowning out, literally drowning out, all of those abortion activists. And this is what happens when you praise the Lord and you worship Him and you honor Him, right? And that's what this woman does. So Mary Carmen Zakrajsek grew up in Carmel, Indiana, graduated from Marian University after studying political science and Spanish. And I'll just say briefly, she started her journey to be pro-life all the way back in middle school. I really want my granddaughter to follow her journey. Her 8 years of pro-life involvement and 2 Student for Life fellowship programs have enabled her to excel in pro-life leadership and organization. In high school, her pro-life group faced a legal battle with the administration over their First Amendment rights. And after leading the student effort and with the help of Liberty Counsel, the school changed course and allowed the group to exercise its pro-life beliefs. This experience confirmed her deep passion and drive for advancing the cause of pro-life organizations. She served as the president of Marian University's Knights for Life, and I interviewed her. She grew that from a small fledgling organization to a huge organization that had busloads going to Washington, D.C., where she organized and equipped pro-life college students to educate others on the issue of abortion and create a supportive environment for pregnant and parenting students. Mary Carmen has been featured on NPR, that's shocking, but okay, Fox Live Action, the Indy Star, Catholic Vote, The Current Carmel, and has spoken for Indiana Family Institute, National Catholic Youth Conference, Corpus Christi for Unity and Peace, Catholic Heart Work Camp, the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, the Diocese of Lafayette, and various colleges and law schools across the region. Mary Carmen currently resides in Indianapolis and serves the pro-life generation as Students for Life of America's Great Lakes Regional Coordinator. And by the way, she just got a promotion. Was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Round of applause for that. This now includes serving not just Indiana, but Michigan as well, to empower pro-life leaders, mobilize and equip pro-life activists, educate on the issue of abortion, and increase awareness of life-affirming alternatives for families in need. I honestly could not think of a better person to help us counter all of the disinformation that people are plagued with out there. In the Indy Star just had one today. It's just unreal, the level of disinformation. So Mary Carmen, would you please join me?
Wow, thank you so much. I just wanted to open up and give a big thank you to Representative Mayfield, all of our legislators who just had that amazing courage to be bold and be honest in their pro-life conviction. And it's really full circle. I remember as a student back at Marian, during my senior year, we could not go to March for Life in Washington, D.C., and so we decided to have our own week on campus where we did a campus March for Life. It was a whole conference of events where we had speakers come in, we tuned into the National Students for Life of America's summit that week. And we actually got to go to the State House and stand outside with our banners, and Representative Mayfield, I believe, was the only House representative that came out to speak with us. So that was really neat, just getting to see her, and yeah, like I said, just be here full circle. So I wanted to send a thank you to all of our legislators and really ask and echo what she said in terms of your prayers and support. They are being ripped apart. Literally ripped apart from every single side. And so if we could continue our support and our prayers for them, that's really what the state of Indiana needs right now. So Vicki asked me to speak particularly on the topic of dispelling those common myths surrounding abortion. What we're hearing on the ground, what we're seeing on social media, what we're hearing in our conversations with family members, with peers, with coworkers. And so I just wanted to start off. I know I see so many beautiful familiar faces in the crowd. I just want to give a disclaimer that you can never hear an apologetics training too much. Even if you feel completely confident and articulate on the topic of abortion, it always helps to have a refresher, even if it's from the same person over and over. So I'm excited to give that overview. And I wanted to first start by really painting the picture. Every single justification for abortion earnestly tries to get you to think about anything else other than abortion. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Every single argument and justification for the issue of abortion pulls your mind away, distracts you from actually thinking about what abortion is and what abortion does. And so the topic of abortion, the question of abortion, has nothing to do with bodily rights or with viability or the potential to suffer. Okay, the topic of abortion has everything to do with who is impacted by the abortion, with what abortion does, and to whom it victimizes. And so that's where we're going to start today, and then I'm going to finish by talking about just those common attacks, common justifications that we hear, particularly after Roe's reversal and Senate Bill 1. So we need to ask the question and stay laser focused on one thing, okay? And that is, who are the preborn? Who are the preborn? Can you guys repeat that?
Who are the preborn?
Who are the preborn? Okay, that is your central focus anytime somebody brings up the topic of abortion. Because as I said, they're going to distract you and they're going to pull you aside from thinking about who the preborn are. And so they're going to bring up other issues, other rabbit holes. And if you go down those rabbit holes, you will lose. You will lose. Okay? So we ask ourselves, who are the preborn? Why do we do that? Well, it's important to define what we're dealing with, in this case, who we're dealing with, before we can determine or legitimize what we do to them. Right? If the preborn was nothing more than an organ, right? Babies are not organs. But if the preborn was nothing more than an organ of the woman's body, or just, clumps of somatic cells, of tissues, I would have no problem with abortion. I would be all for any justification of abortion because there would be no moral wrong. You wouldn't be killing another innocent human being, right? But if the preborn are innocent human beings, then every successful abortion is wrong. Every abortion, period. Why? Because abortion intentionally and directly kills that innocent preborn human being. So that means that we need to define those things. We need to define whether the preborn are living, human, and whole. Now we know they're innocent, right? They're babies. And we could talk about the argument for self-defense, but if the preborn are living human beings and we stick to that case and we make our argument, that's the starting point, right? And we're going to change a lot of hearts and minds based on that. And so when we talk about the question of whether something is living, how do we know whether something is living? Right? How do we know whether a fetus is living or not? Well, luckily, biology tells us right away the characteristics that define whether something is living or not. Right? Something growing through cellular reproduction, something that metabolizes nutrients into energy, something that responds to stimuli, absolutely. The preborn fulfill all of those things to a T. And so we know without a question of a doubt that the preborn are living. If the preborn were not living, there would be no reason for an abortion, right? Okay, but lots of things are living. I hear this all the time on college campuses. Lots of things are living. My skin cells, my blood cells, right? Or spiders, insects, animals. Are you vegan? I always get that question, especially at Catholic high school. Are you vegan? No, I'm not vegan. It's not the fact that it's merely living why abortion is wrong. Because as they mentioned, lots of things are living. You know, if a spider comes across the floor and I step on the spider, I just killed a living thing. Is that a heinous moral crime? No. Why? Because a spider is not human. Right? We realize the difference in value between insects and human beings, between plants and human beings, between animals and human beings. And so it's not just that the preborn are living, it's that they're human, right? They're a member, a biological member of the human species, of our family. But then you might get the person that says, well, you know, what about other living human cells that we discard? I'm a blood donor. If I give my blood, I'm discarding thousands of human cells. But you are not pushing for a ban on blood donation or organ donation. Well, no, of course not. Because it's not just that the preborn are living and human, it's that they're whole, that they're organisms, that they're beings. Right? And this is what really defines, what separates the preborn from being just another part of a woman's body. This is what separates the preborn from being just another living human cell that attaches itself to the human body. It's that from the moment of fertilization, this distinct, unique human organism, living human organism, has never existed before and will never exist again. And when I was at the State House listening to testimonies, I think it was the first day, on the 25th, in the Senate, there was a woman there who was from the American College of Pediatricians. And she testified, and in her testimony, she had discarded the fact that the fetus was a human being. And I thought that was so ironic, because if you actually Google the American College of Pediatricians, with the subject of when does life begin, an article published by the American College of Pediatricians with the title, When Does Life Begin, says the following. It says, the predominance of human biological research confirms that human life begins at conception, fertilization. At fertilization, the human being emerges as a whole, genetically distinct, individuated, zygotic, living human organism, a member of the species Homo sapiens, needing only the proper environment in order to grow and develop. The difference between the individual in its adult stage and in its zygotic stage is one of form, not nature. This statement focuses on the scientific evidence of when an individual human life begins. Okay? Biology is clear. At the moment of fertilization, we have a new, living, distinct human organism. Okay? Science tells me what something is, and my faith tells me whether that has value, right? Or if you're a non-religious person, you appeal to natural law, anything can inform you what you think has value, but it can't change the biological reality of what something is. Okay? We're dealing with a living human being from the moment of fertilization. And so that's the first point that you really want to make clear, because, like I said, if they bring up rabbit holes, and you go down these rabbit holes of viability, or foster care, or poverty, or she's going to lose her job, or the 11-year-old girl, if you go down all of these rabbit holes, and at the end of the day, you don't even share the understanding that who you're talking about is a living human being, when it doesn't matter whether that living human being dies or not, because they don't even equate it to being a human being worthy of life. So you want to be very clear that we're dealing with living human beings. And sometimes you'll have pro-choice is a misnomer, it's pro-abortion. You'll have pro-abortion individuals who agree with you, sure, yeah, you know, biologically it is a living human being, okay. But, here's the but it's not fill in the blank, right? But it doesn't have a heartbeat, but it's not sentient, but it's going to grow up in poverty, but it will be abused. Fill in the blank with any type of scenario. And these are what we call the hard cases, right? And I really like discussing the hard cases because it forces us to be consistent, right? It forces a pro-life person to really be genuine and true in their belief, and not, in the term switched out, or not cave, or, it makes us really consider and even double down in our position, because if we're dealing with living human beings, with innocent living human beings, there's no justification for abortion. But that doesn't mean we discard the difficulties or the circumstances or the tragedies or anything else resulting around this situation in these moments, right? We're pro-life because we believe that life has value and innocent people should protect us from violence. And guess what? That extends to the child, that extends to the mother, that extends to the father, that extends to the family, the whole person, right? It's the beauty and the consistency of the pro-life movement. And so when we're dealing about these hard cases, we need to be really good in convention or even the philosophy, but they don't have the greatest skills of compassion, so they might come off as harsh or inconsiderate, and so it just causes the other person to put up a wall and to disregard everything else that they're saying. And so I always tell our students that when you're discussing abortion with somebody, the first thing you do is you listen, right? You really listen to what their argument is. You throw out all preconceived notions. You don't try to guess what they're saying. You listen and you acknowledge the difficulty. You acknowledge the reason why they feel that abortion is the solution. Because they're coming from a place of compassion, right? They feel that abortion is the only compassionate solution to this young victim of sexual assault. Or that abortion is the only compassionate solution to this mother of 5 that doesn't have the finances to provide for another child, right? Now, it's a misplaced compassion because the solution can never be killing an innocent human being. And that's what we want to gently guide them and clarify their intentions and clarify their understanding of what they think abortion is and who the preborn are, okay? So we listen and we acknowledge the difficulty. Whatever scenario they bring up justifying abortion, we acknowledge the real reason why that woman might think, okay, I need to get an abortion, right? If the woman's a student, yeah, I agree. Colleges have really failed to make campus a supportive environment for pregnant parents and students. Colleges actually have a list of policies that pressure a young woman to drop out of school or get an abortion, right? Housing policies that discriminate or kick a woman off campus when she starts showing. Or, these athletic coaches that make these offhand comments saying, well, don't get pregnant or you're not going to be on the team anymore. Right? I acknowledge that colleges have really failed, that work environments, organizations, companies have really failed to make it a reasonable supportive environment for a working mom, right? And after you acknowledge the difficulty, you build that common ground, you clarify, you ask the question. But is it humane or is it moral to intentionally end the life of this innocent person? Because of that, or are there non-violent alternatives we can look to? And then after you clarify, right, and kind of gently pick their brain, because what happens a lot of times, and you'll see this in videos that go viral, is that the pro-abortion side is really good at asking questions, right? They're really good at framing things in a certain way, and so you end up being on the defense the whole time, trying to defend your position against this, that, and the other, that they never really get the chance to open up and explain their position. And a lot of times, this is where we see the mind changes, is when you start probing and asking them to clarify. No one's ever asked them to do that before. And so they start to see the own flaws in their logic and their inconsistency. As I mentioned earlier, when you say, yes, it's human, but it's not blank, or but it doesn't have blank, they don't even realize the range of human rights atrocities that were born from that very mentality. Anytime that we look at a living, breathing human being and say, yeah, you're human, but you're not worthy of these rights. Or yeah, you're human, but we can exterminate you because of X, Y, or Z characteristics. We've seen that played out over and over and over in world history. And I, as a pro-life individual, don't believe you need to be anything but human to have value, to be protected from violence. I don't think you need to have a certain physical characteristic or a mental capability like sentience, or I don't think you need to have anything else other than the fact that you're human. Okay, that's essentially what's called the equal rights argument. It's very simple. It goes like this. If the preborn are growing, they're alive. And if they have human parents, then they're human. And if living humans like you and I have human rights, why don't they? That's all it is. That's all we're asking our government. That's all we're asking in these conversations. Hang on, we agree that you and I deserve protection from violence, that we have a right to life. Okay, well, why don't they? And get them to bring up their justification, right? Because a heartbeat and consciousness and the ability to have memories and talking, those things do not define our nature. Those are properties or characteristics, but we can look to real, living, breathing human beings that might not have those characteristics, those full capacities on their own, right? Does that exclude them from being protected from violence? No. So it's science and philosophy that we always use to defend our argument, okay? And we use compassion and good dialoguing skills when we're presented with what I would call the hard cases, difficult cases. And so I wanted to close by just going through some of those and the misinformation that we're hearing. I would say the biggest one, there's two biggest ones. The first biggest one that we're seeing over social media, that we heard in the testimonies, that we see in protests and chants and on signs, is that women will die. Women will die without safe, legal access to abortion. I've seen signs that say pro-life laws kill women. Right? People are really worried and scared, and they think that Senate Bill 1 will be the death of them. Why do they think this? Well, for the last 50 years, the idea that these back alley abortions were killing thousands of women by the year was promulgated without ever being fact-checked. We know now from the biography of Dr. Bernard Nathanson, the co-founder of National Abortion Rights Action League, okay, the one responsible for committing over 60,000 abortions, we know that when he was finally asked, you know, you are quoted for saying that thousands of women are dying of back alley abortions, where did you get that number? He said, do you know where I got that number? I looked up, and I pulled it out of thin air. And nobody questioned it. And so the news, the media, they took that story and they ran with it and scared everybody, scared the Supreme Court justices, scared legislators into thinking that if we don't legalize abortion now, we will be responsible for the blood of women. Okay? What puzzles me about this argument today, because we know that's false, CDC, if you actually look it up, pre-1973, it said that, oh gosh, I think it was about 38 women that had died from illegal abortion. Okay, this was before penicillin. 38 women is a really big difference from thousands. But what's puzzling to me today when I hear this argument is that the woman who obtains an illegal abortion, let's say in states right now, in Texas and Alabama, wherever, the woman who obtains an illegal abortion is obtaining the same pill, the same drug that is being promulgated, advertised, pushed forth through legal abortion. The abortion industry has already been preparing for the day when Roe is reversed and when states ban abortion, because their whole frontier of now offering abortion is chemical abortion. I can show you screenshots of comments I've seen where people are saying, hey, if your state has banned abortion, don't worry, and they'll put a link to aidingpills.com, and it will aid them into getting an abortion. An illegal abortion, which is actually the same kind of abortion that Planned Parenthood pushes for, which is chemical abortion, which is 4 times deadlier than any other abortion. I'm so thankful that Representative Mayfield said, you know, we don't have a national abortion reporting law. We don't even know all of the risks and side effects to chemical abortion because we don't have uniform laws that say you need to report these things. We know women have died. We know at least 25 women have died from taking these drugs. Okay, we know that previously it was banned in the United States because the chemical had the same subfamily as the gas used in the concentration camps. We know the history of this pill, that chemical abortion causes injury, infertility, and death. And yet this is what we get in the same legal abortion. So it's just puzzling to me. But aside from that, philosophically, if we're just talking logic, right, how do we defend this argument? Because no pro-life individual wants women to die. We don't want anybody to die, right? Even if it were true that women would break the law to obtain chemical abortion, to obtain even a surgical abortion, right? That doesn't mean we legalize the act to do so. It's true that many people break the law and hurt themselves in the process, okay? Bank robbery is very risky. You might get shot. You might hurt yourself breaking into the bank. You might be detained. You might, you know, but we don't legalize criminal behavior because the person seeking that behavior might injure themselves in the process. We would never do that with any other act. Our goal, particularly at Students for Life, we always believe in education and awareness and speaking to these women and educating them about the risks of abortion and why abortion is not good for them and kills a human being in the process. The second one, and sometimes when they say women will die, you know, they're referring to abortion as medically necessary, and women, good-meaning women who want their babies will die if they don't have abortions. And I really think there's just a misunderstanding of what life of the mother even means, which Representative Mayfield touched on earlier. Intent really matters, okay? The intent matters. No pro-life law is seeking to stop life-saving treatment for pregnant women. Okay, our intent is to save both lives. And sometimes, tragically, there are situations, there are circumstances where we can only save one life. But doing a life-saving treatment where the result of one of the individuals of the baby, where their risk for dying increases, does not mean our intent was ever to kill this child. We want to save both, but it's a triage situation. So what can we do? What can pro-life doctors do? We treat both patients as well-deserving of life, and we do everything we can to save as much life. And so a lot of times when I clarify with people, with students, I work with students, and they bring up life of the mother scenarios and say, absolutely, you know, we're in agreement that we do care about the life of the mother. And by the way, ectopic pregnancy treatment is not an abortion, and septic uterine treatment is not an abortion, and miscarriage removal is not an abortion. So I think the key there is just kind of breaking down what life of the mother actually means and walking them through to see that, oh wow, you know, the pro-life movement recognizes that pregnancy can be dangerous sometimes and lives can be at risk, and we're going to do everything we can to save as much life. But that doesn't mean we ever intentionally kill somebody like an abortion always does. The second one that I really want to bring up, then I have one more, is always the question of rape. It's always the question of sexual assault. We see this, we hear this nonstop, right? Just last month with the 10-year-old girl from Ohio. I mean, this makes headlines. And we can't dismiss this. We can't discard it and say, well, there's only less than 1% of abortions are due to rape, okay? Because that's still a number, right? Women who are sexually assaulted and who do conceive from that. What's our stance? What's our position? We need to be ready to defend ourselves. We need to be ready to extend a compassionate hand, walk with this mother who's just undergone a most traumatic events, right? Her body's been violated. Let's not offer her another act of violation. Let's not offer her another invasive act of violence into her body, such as abortion. I think there's the misunderstanding, again, from a place of compassion, but that every survivor of sexual assault who is conceived must want an abortion. And that really breaks my heart, particularly for the women that I know who want their babies, who see the value of their babies, who recognize that, yes, this child was conceived from a horrible act, but that the circumstance of my child's conception doesn't determine whether she has value or not, whether she has the right to live or not. You know, when we're talking about abortion in cases of rape, I always ask the other person and clarify, okay, we both agree that sexual violence is wrong. Why? Why do we both agree that rape is wrong and should be outlawed? Because it is wrong to use your body to harm another human being's body. Specifically, especially in this way, right? You are harming another innocent human body, you are violating that person's body against their will, that is the same moral reasoning that compels me to be against abortion. The same moral reasoning that compels me to see the atrocity of rape because an innocent human being was violated, that is the same reasoning that's why I'm pro-life. Nobody's body has the right to harm, violate, or kill another innocent human body. Right? And we can agree on that, at least, in terms of all these other human rights abuses. But I really recommend 90% of your response being relational. Okay? Because you don't know if the person that you're conversing with has been a survivor of sexual assault. You don't know if the person walking by or their family member has experienced that trauma before. And so the first thing you do is you listen. You really listen. And you acknowledge the difficulty. You acknowledge the hardship and the trauma. I cannot imagine what it would be like to undergo such horrible violence against myself. And I am so sorry that anybody has treated you as such. And I want to do everything I can to make sure that survivors like you are protected, are respected, are loved, are given the healing that they need, right? And I want to punish those who did that too. I want to make sure that rapists, that abusers, that traffickers, that sexual assaulters are punished to the fullest extent of the law. And in many ways, we need to change our laws, right? And the child that was conceived from this is another innocent survivor of this sexual assault. There are three people: the woman, the rapist, and the child. Two of them are innocent. Okay? And it's our duty to protect those who are innocent. And to fight for their protection, to fight for their accessibility to these resources is healing. And that it doesn't matter your biology, right? Having half the DNA of a father you never knew, a father who violated your mother, doesn't matter your biology or the circumstance of your conception. You are a member of the human family, and you're equal of that dignity, and you're equal of the right to life. And the last one is, we've heard this since 1973, my body, my choice, right? Sometimes that's disguised as the government has no rights over a woman's body, the government shouldn't be legislating about my body, and oftentimes, you know, people defer to, well, there are two bodies, right? There's the woman's body and the baby's body. And actually, bodily autonomy is the reason why I'm pro-life, because every body should be protected from violence, including that innocent preborn human body. But a lot of times they don't they know that there are two bodies. But the fact that the body resides within the woman's body is why she should have a right to an abortion. Because the woman's body is a sovereign zone. Anything inside the woman's body is her right to control. She has her right to deal with anything inside of her body, even if there's another being in there, because that being is permanently or temporarily attached to her, but affecting her body. And so, oftentimes, they don't realize the extent of their argument when they say the woman can do anything to that child. And so you just want to clarify, ask the questions. So does this mean that you are okay with late-term abortion? Does this mean you are okay with gender-side abortion? Does this mean you're okay with abortion for an art project? I don't know if any of you have seen that in the news. Okay, a woman obtaining an abortion so she could use the blood of her child in an art project. This is real. This is real. If you really believe that the woman's body is a sovereign zone, then you can't possibly say that those things are wrong. Right? And sometimes they'll bite the bullet and they'll say, no, anything. If they don't bite the bullet, then you can go back to the previous understanding as to why abortion is always wrong. But sometimes they bite the bullet and say, yep, anything in her body she can do. Right? And so there's thought experiments you can ask them on. You can ask them about thalidomide. Thalidomide was the morning sickness drug that doctors were prescribing to women before they realized that these children were being born without limbs from the effects of this drug. And so you can ask, do you think that thalidomide should still be prescribed? Do you think that a woman has the right to use thalidomide if she wants to intentionally deform her child? No. But sometimes they're not referring to the sovereign zone, and they're referring to the right to refuse. And this is what I want to end on. Is that the woman has the right to refuse her bodily support for this child. In the same way that you cannot force me to donate a kidney, in the same way that you cannot force me to be hooked up to somebody for life support, you cannot force this woman to be connected to this child for 9 months. This phrasing, this argument, was really popular with the book by Jane Judith Jarvis, who wrote the book on the defense of abortion, where she created that same thought experiment, that you are connected to a person for 9 months and only your blood is a correct blood type that can sustain their life. But don't worry, after 9 months you can unplug yourself. Should you be legally bound to that person, to that stranger? And while there's a host of why that is not akin to abortion, the biggest reason is that abortion is not merely denial of bodily support. Abortion is not unplugging yourself. If you're somebody in need of a kidney, and I'm the only person who can give you that kidney, I have how many options? 1, I can give you my kidney and help you. 2, I can not give you my kidney, right, and not help you, and you die as a result of that. Or 3, I can kill you. Okay? When we're talking about pregnancy, there's only 2 options. I can continue this pregnancy, right? Or I can kill you. There's no mere denial of bodily support. Abortion, every abortion, intentionally, directly, and actively, not passively removes the body, but actively kills a human being through starvation, suction, dismemberment, or poison. That is why abortion is wrong and different from a right to refuse argument. Those are my best tips and tricks for now. I want to thank you for your patience, and I'm going to pass it back on to Vicki.
That was absolutely fantastic.